Hello, everybody. Welcome in. It is 10:01 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday, December 28th, 2016. Welcome into the Earthquake 3D live stream where we daily recap seismic events that strike around the planet, and we issue semi-daily and weekly earthquake forecasts for new locations to be on watch. And that being said, for those of you who are new here, it looks like we're starting out with about 800 people in chat. If you're new, please subscribe. I have to ask, it's a YouTube thing. And everybody who's a repeat viewer, guys, welcome back. What a day today was. Starting out this morning, you can see a huge stack of earthquakes that's here on the map that struck at the California-Nevada border. Now, these topped out at two different 5.7 earthquakes, and they struck when I was on the live stream. I was on this morning addressing trolling in the chat room. It was a funny little conversation we were having as we were discussing that the earthquake hit. And many of my viewers who live in the area, several of which were in the chat room, I want to say there was about 300 or 400 people in there at the time, and maybe a few dozen people live in the region, felt it. And it's significant. It's the largest earthquake to strike the Intermountain California region in years. And the follow-up earthquakes were significant. We're talking about 5.5, 5.6, 5.3, and look at the stack of 2s, 3s, and 4s. So at this point, I think I should go grab the coordinates for the first 5.7 that hit, go put them in on Google Earth, and show you guys what resides at the earthquake location. It's always good to go look up these locations, okay? So we're going to do that right now. Let me shrink my screen here just a little bit so I'm not blocking anything. And you can still see me talk if you want to full screen it. Not a big deal. Here we are. We're on the coordinates page for the USGS. This is just the main page that opens up when you click on the earthquake on the USGS site. You grab the coordinates from the top of the page, put them in on Google Earth. I always recommend you use Google Earth. I don't get paid to promote them or anything. It's a free service. You can download it for free at earth.google.com with no www, just earth.google.com. Download it, and it's free to use, so why not use it? It gives you better map service, better place marks. You can download stuff from the Smithsonian, the USGS, put it on here for your use. So we're going to zoom in on the area, and this is at the California-Nevada border, okay, so you can see as we're zooming in, and take a look at the screen. Okay, as I'm zooming in, you're going to make out there's a few locations here, and if you're a longtime viewer, you've already seen these at least a dozen times in videos going back a few months. These are volcanoes, Aurora Crater, and you can make out the obsidian and black basalt and still cinders visible, as well as the lava flow off of Aurora Crater. And the more obvious one over to the east doesn't have a name, but it has a cone at the center and then a side sill that broke out and flowed out a 300-foot high, very chunky lava flow. Long time ago, but not too long ago when you take a look at the area overall. Right next to here is the Hawthorne Military Arsenal with a boatload of bunkers, each bunker loaded with ammunition of some kind. But these earthquakes happen far down below in the crust, where the magma chambers for these earthquakes, the magma chambers of the volcanoes match up with the earthquakes. And down to the south, you'll see a large lake. This is Mono Lake. This is a Smithsonian-marked volcano, and it's a supervolcano. It's half the size of Yellowstone. So, a large swarm broke out on the flanks of Aurora Crater. This is significant. This is something we need to pay very close attention to. It's not the sign of a coming eruption, so we don't have to worry about that. That's not what we're talking about here. The reason the swarm broke out at this location is because yesterday, a much larger earthquake than what you see here, this 4.3, something about a magnitude and a half larger, actually struck off the coast. So more like a 5.7, and then it makes more sense. A 5.7 striking over here to the east-southeast. So, all in all, if you're in California, I want you to know something. We talked about this for the last 3 to 4 days. Let that sink in for a second. 3 to 4 days, we issued warnings for a 5.7 to be striking northwest California, and then the earthquake struck off the coast, which was a 5.7. The downgrade was massive, 1.5 magnitude off of the original earthquake. So that was followed by movement interior to the coast at the volcanoes. Now this morning I got on, did an update when the earthquake struck. Of course, I did several videos this morning. You can see those on my YouTube channel. I issued a warning for Southern California. Said down near Salton Sea, we would be seeing a 4.0 earthquake as the zones are connected and the pressure is going to be transferring down to the east-southeast and over to the Midwest. Well, later on this morning, going into this afternoon, a 4.0 and noteworthy swarm broke out just north of Salton Sea on the San Andreas Fault. Okay? So, I mean, it's just, we're not getting lucky. I'm talking about some serious activity that's broke out, and it's spreading out from that location to the east-southeast and over to the Midwest. Now, usually, when we see large earthquakes on the West Coast, we see follow-up movement at the fracking operations in southern Colorado, West Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas. All those locations tend to be hit after large movement on the coast. So when we look at this and we see a huge amount of movement out on the West Coast, it means the Midwest for the next few days needs to be on extreme watch at the fracking ops for large movement, either a swarm equal to what struck or a single larger earthquake. And if the single larger earthquake were to strike, it should be at least equal to what struck over on the West Coast. Okay, so this is huge, right? I mean, this is the largest earthquake in the California Intermountain region in several years' time. And for Nevada, it's been many years since a 5.7, 5.8 type earthquake struck. And the volcanoes nearby, well, the reason that the earthquake struck there, pressure is coming up from underneath and it's spreading upwards and outwards. As the pressure spreads upwards and outwards, it's hitting these magma chambers that are far down below in the crust. It's the first thing that the pressure hits. And it finds a weak point to release at, a fracture point where Mother Nature in the past has fractured up through the crust and created these volcanoes. So it's the first spot that's hit. Second spot that's hit are the pumping operations and the dormant volcanoes that are a little bit more shallow. And what do we have down to the south? Well, we have pumping operations and dormant volcanoes. Connecting those zones, we have the San Andreas Fault. All three moving. Okay? Now, there are also reports coming out of some kind of gaseous sulfuric smell that's reporting up in northwest California. Okay, guys, so people are reporting that up in, I think, San Francisco. And all I could say is please take a look at the screen. Okay? Now, anytime we see large movement on the West Coast, especially at the volcanoes, we have to take a look out off the shores to see what resides off the shores of San Francisco. And this takes me out to a location I showed previously when San Francisco mysteriously shook. You remember this a couple weeks ago? People reported shaking all across San Francisco, and the USGS said they didn't know what was causing it. Well, look what's right offshore. 4 large undersea volcanoes. It's pretty obvious, right? Here's San Francisco. Here we are right offshore. 4 undersea cones, if you will. I mean, each one a separate volcano. Now, the reason the shaking happened in San Francisco, the same day that San Francisco shook, down here, I have a place mark on this, a 6.0 earthquake struck on the side of another volcano. Now, you can't see it as well. It's not imaged nearly as well. Okay? So, a large earthquake struck there. Guess what? USGS hid it. They didn't report it. We had to go to other agencies to get the information. So, anyways, 12 hours after that 6.0 hit down here on that volcano, then San Francisco shook mysteriously all over the area. And that led me to look into the area to see what was there. And then I saw those 4 volcanoes and I said, oh, wow. Okay, that was what? Last month? Okay, so that means if you're getting a sulfuric smell, it could be, not necessarily will be, but could be coming from offshore. Okay? What else do we have going on? Oh, overseas. Check this out, guys. 2 new deep earthquakes. So, 2 new deep earthquakes means the potential for shallower, larger movement to develop in the West Pacific in the next 72 hours. To top all that off, the area we warned in Japan, we warned the area between the letter D and the tip of the red arrow. Well, this led to a 5.9 earthquake. We were looking for a low 6. So 5.9, 6.0, there's our earthquake at the tip of the red arrow. Still blows me away to see it happen real time. All that being said, down here in South New Zealand or Central New Zealand, we have a complete earthquake forecast miss for me. Magnitude is spot on, time is spot on, location is about 800 miles off. Now we were talking about New Zealand, and we talked about looking at the red arrow for a 5.4, 5.5, and a 5.4, 5.5 struck down to the south, right along our plate boundary. So, location off, magnitude on, day on. Well, that doesn't help the people in New Zealand. So I'm going to go to the drawing board and try and figure out why it is that the earthquake larger struck to the south. It could very well be we're looking at a potential of a new plate fracture that's getting ready to develop in New Zealand. But first things first, there has to be a new round of deep earthquakes up where our letter D is. And the last 3 to 4 days, nothing. So, no new deep earthquakes in this location means the possibility of larger earthquakes in New Zealand is diminished or diminishing, but not fully removed. So over the next 72 hours, I am watching very close in this spot south of Wellington, and we need to watch for the potential for this to go larger. How much larger? Oh boy, this one's a guess. This isn't a forecast because we don't have anything to base it on other than the current movement that's going on. And I would dare say if it were to go larger, the most it would go larger would be 1 magnitude larger, 6.2. But 6.2, that's enough to cause landslides. That's enough to cause damage. So keep watch, 72 hours at the most. And I'll be addressing this by tomorrow. We'll have more information. We'll have more earthquakes to go on. Right now, we don't have any. Nothing to the north. Over to the west, I would also like to point out, Papua New Guinea finally got hit. We talked about Papua New Guinea, forecast for Papua New Guinea. Now Papua New Guinea has been hit on land. And we talked about whether it would strike out to sea or whether it would strike on land. We said on land because, first of all, it hadn't been hit in weeks. Secondly, pressure is transferring due west. You can see it. See the progression of earthquakes from east to west? They're almost like they're connected. Okay? Now, over in the West Pacific, look, guys, no activity in 48 hours. None. No 4s, no 5s. I'm using the international feed from the USGS and EMSC. You'd think we'd have some earthquakes on here, but there are none. Now, as many of my viewers know, anytime an area that's normally seismically prone goes completely silent, well, this is a sign that we need to be on watch for a larger earthquake to strike. How much larger? At least 1 magnitude larger than what's been striking over in Japan and over in Papua New Guinea. Well, Papua New Guinea has 2 5.3s. That actually equals 5.43. And up to the north, 5.9, 6.0. If you add those two together, that takes us to about a 6.1. But we also have to add in what should have struck over the past couple days. There should have been at least 4 or 5 different 4s and at least 2 different 5s. So if there's been nothing, that means we have to add that potential in as well, and that takes us up to 6.5. So 6.5 potential exists, but where? Well, we have to go between our 2 zones that are moving. Well, which zones are moving? Well, Cinnabung erupted again today. So Cinnabung is our termination point. If you don't know where Cinnabung is, it is right here. Take a look. Okay, so Cinnabung there. We go over to the east, and our halfway point is down here at East Timor. East Timor going into Indonesia. So it's a small island chain here. It's halfway between Cinnabung and the spots that are moving. Okay? There's another halfway point, unfortunately, though, and that's between Japan and the 5.3 down to the south. So the 5.9 to the north, the 5.3 to the south, that adds up to 6.1. We look in our middle point. This is North Philippines and a similar size earthquake over near Guam where our 2 arrows meet. Both sides will be hit. It's not a 50-50. It's a 100% chance on both sides. It should be similar in size. So we should see a 6 on one side and like a 5.8 on the other. Okay? That's in the next 72 hours. Over to the west, well, guys, we have no activity to report from the USGS across this region. But let me go turn on the Russian feed. Здравствуйте to my Russian viewers, okay? Очень хорошо, very good. But let's see if this thing even works. There we go. Okay, so Russians are reporting multiple earthquakes over the last day in a location where the USGS is not. 4.8, 4.2. 4.8 striking December 28th at 14:25 UTC, and the 4.2 striking on December 28th at 8:14 UTC. So, a 5 and a 4 striking, basically. And the USGS has nothing. Well, that's a huge difference. If we have a 5 and a 4 striking here, this means 5 potential is going back down into South Europe. Look at which way our red lines go. Additionally, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the Iranian feed. This is thanks to MC Player and Squeaks, who are developing our global feed for Earthquake 3D. Then you'll see we have an additional 4 and a huge swarm across all of Iran. Where are the swarms happening? They're happening on both sides of the plate boundary, heading over towards Europe. So, we have a 5, a 4, another 4, and a swarm of 1s, 2s, and 3s. Okay, this is all adding up. Now let's go into Turkey. Let's go take a look at the Turkish feed. See what Turkey has for the last day. Take a look at it, guys. Last day and a half. Huge swarm. Again, 1s, 2s, topping out at 2, I guess. Okay. Well, add all that in with another 4 down in Crete. It's starting to add up. So if we add the 5, the 4s, the multiple 3s, 2s, 1s, it brings us up. Oh, I'm sorry, not 5s. We add the 5, the 4, the other 4, the 3s, the 2s, the 1s. That takes us to the potential of 5.1 to 5.2 to strike between Crete and Cyprus. These two islands right here. Crete is on the red arrow. Cyprus is over here to the east. So we have to watch between here for potential up to 5.3. Then we have to watch for potential 4.9, 4.8, somewhere in the upper 4, possibly into 5.0 itself, striking back in central Italy, back in Norcia. This should all happen within the next 72 hours. Okay? Also, one other thing I'd like to report to my European viewers. You don't see it on the map here now, but a 4.4 struck today off the shores of Norway in the North Sea. How about that? Why did that happen? Well, how about the 5.4 that we talked about yesterday over here in Romania? And I told you pressure was going to transfer up and across Europe and go out into the North Sea, and that's exactly what happened. Now, they didn't report the earthquake. You have to go to the seismologist page to go check it out. Just a little technical detail on how pressure transfers across the plate. Okay, let's get into South America and Central America. We have 2 other areas to talk about tonight. I'm trying to make this as quick as possible, not trying to drag on too hard. When we get done with the update, we will quickly let everybody know what the forecast is for the next few days. I know people in California, people in the Midwest, you guys want to know what's going on. Same with New Zealand. So we'll get you both taken care of in the next 5 minutes. Okay, Central America. New swarm of earthquakes throughout South Mexico, going all the way down towards Costa Rica. Now we have volcanic eruptions. I'm not going to show that to you right now in the interest of time, but multiple blasts. Colima, Turrialba, going down through South America. So the spots where there aren't earthquakes, there are volcanic eruptions. How about that? So, in between the zones where there's no earthquakes and there are volcanic eruptions, we have building stress. Where's that stress building? Well, it should be building here in North Peru, South Ecuador, right along the coast. It should be a combination of 3 areas. The 4s to the south, the 4s to the north, and the pressure coming in from the leftovers off the earthquakes from 2 days ago. Or is it now 3 days ago? Yeah, 72 hours ago, there were 2 deep earthquakes over here in the West Pacific, 4.4. Add that all together, it takes us up back into the 5.1, 5.2 range. So, 5s are enough to knock down houses, and we saw a person die in a 5.5 this past, 2 people 2 people died in a 5.5 just this past week in Ecuador. So anytime we get near 5 or above 5, please get the warning out to the people there. Okay, I know it's not a huge earthquake we're looking for right now, but in light of what else happened this past week, it's prudent to be prepared. Speaking of being prepared, on the West Coast, in the Midwest, let's now quickly tell you what to watch for over the next couple days. First of all, the swarm's carrying on. Okay, this swarm, again, happening at a volcano. Now, the volcano's not going to erupt, but it's a sign that the pressure is still in the area. Now, the pressure is huge. We're talking about a 6.5 that struck 3 weeks ago? Yeah, 6.5 struck 3 weeks ago off the coast here. Okay? That was followed by a 5.0 off the coast here. So take the 6.5 plus the 5, that takes it up to 6.6. Rough addition. Nothing transferred beyond Oklahoma since then. And the pressure was trapped in between where a red arrow is on the coast and Oklahoma, where the fracking operations are. Now the pressure is finally released right next to Mammoth Mountain. Now, why is Mammoth Mountain significant? Why am I mentioning Mammoth Mountain when this earthquake is actually happening at Aurora Crater right across the border in Nevada? We have to go back a week when that huge swarm broke out at Mammoth Mountain. You guys remember? Now, we talked about pressure being trapped in between the red arrow and Oklahoma. And we talked about Mammoth Mountain as a release point. Well, now here you are, right next to Mammoth Mountain, releasing again. So this is our new release spot in between the coast and Oklahoma. Now this could increase things back in the Midwest, especially in Colorado, Oklahoma, South Kansas. Man, look, you need to be on watch for the next 72 hours. I'm not exaggerating. The last time we saw a 5.6 on the West Coast, there was a 5.6 in the Midwest. I'm sorry, 5.8 on the West Coast, followed by a 5.8 in Oklahoma the next day. Well, here we are. This is this day, today, this all occurred. We need to watch for at least 3. Okay? So don't take it lightly. 4.5, again, 1 magnitude less, 4.5 at the start of the year in Oklahoma took down chimneys, knocked facades off buildings, and injured several people. It was a shallow 4.5. Well, this is much greater out to your west. And if you see, I want you to think about the weather, okay? When you see a storm and up the stream from you, if you live on a river especially, but anywhere where you live near a river or in a floodplain, you know that if you see a storm upstream from you and it drops a deluge of rain, and that rain quickly pools up and comes down the river, you know it's going to be a flood. Well, that's what's happening, seismically speaking, up the stream from you right now in the Midwest. Now, if you're on the West Coast, we have 2 things to watch for. 1, down here in Southern California, we may not be done. Salton Sea should move again. It should move at least a half magnitude larger at this point. The swarm is carrying on. Now, I want to show you guys something really quick. Let's go over to the USGS page. See where the earthquake is, the swarm here? I hope you guys can see all this. Good. Okay. The star indicates where the earthquake is. Now look at all these little red lines. You see all these? Okay, every one of these little red lines is a different fault zone, but they conjoin each other and meet and go down to the south on this thing called the southern, here, let me get it on the screen. Let me zoom in. This fault zone called the Southern Sierra Nevada Fault Zone. Independent section, but it's in multiple sections. Now I'm going to follow it down to the south. See how it carries on? Let's keep going, see how it gets into here. Okay, now we'll back this out just a little bit, and we're going to keep going down to the south. And our earthquake, the 4.0, struck out here, San Bernardino Mountains. So it connects via fault zones that are pointing in the same direction, going up to where the earthquake struck. Now, if there's a large swarm happening up here at the volcano to the north, logically it follows there should be a large earthquake or similar size, noteworthy size, 4.5, striking down to the south. Okay? Here, excuse me really quick. Still recovering from the throat thing I had going on. Obviously, you can probably tell from my voice. So, over the next couple days, guys, I want to encourage you. dust off your earthquake plans and be prepared. We forecast for a 5.7 to be striking in California and a 5.7 struck in California. We issued a 72-hour watch. It struck on day 3 in the 72-hour time period. We're trying to get it down to very fine points, but right now I'm more at a regional level, so I can warn half a state, or I can warn an area on a coastline for one state, or I can warn a country like Japan or New Zealand. But getting it down to a fine point, unless I have a few more earthquakes to work with, I'm happy reporting for a region. And I hope you in California would be happy to know that for the last 3 to 4 days, I issued warnings for California to watch out for a 5.7. And you can go over to my channel. They're all saved on my channel for time immortal for everybody to see. We warned, it hit. And it's not just the first time. We don't just get lucky. The 5.7 hit because of the other activity that we talked about over this last week. Ultimately, it looks like the whole planet has seen a dramatic increase over the past couple days. Now, this comes at a time where there is no solar activity worth mentioning. No solar flares, no CMEs, no filament ruptures, not even strong solar wind events. Maybe a few little solar storms a couple days ago, but nothing to justify the uptick of the largest earthquakes of the year striking in the last 2 weeks. All 7.9s. Now, I really want you to think about this. We go all year and we see, 7s, maybe a few 7s, and then here we are right at the end of the year, right at Christmas time, and we start seeing these 7.9 earthquakes strike around the planet. And I'm going to show them to you right now. Okay, this is the last month's worth of large earthquakes. Now, this is the most recent 5.2 down in New Zealand, so I can't get that off the map. So just take the green one off the map. Just imagine it not there. You can see in the past 2 to 3 weeks, we have seen the 3 largest earthquakes of the year. And that's significant. You can't ignore that. That's actually means something. Now, if we go down to 6s, you'll see we're actually about even or a little bit above with 6.0 and greater. But if I take it down one more step, you're going to see a whole bunch of earthquakes pop on the map because guess what? They downgraded half the 6s to 5.9s to get them off the 6 feed. Now, how about that? You take those into account, then we're actually above where we're supposed to be right now. Worthy noting, take a look at the deep earthquakes raised high off the globe on both sides of the planet this month. Both sides of the planet, down below in an area called the astenosphere, which is just a complex word for the semi-melted magma down below the plate, was perturbed all the way around that planet. And next to each deep earthquake, we have the largest earthquake of the year. It's not a coincidence. The deep earthquakes lead to shallower, larger earthquakes, and look how far away these are. 1,000 miles, 2,000 miles, 1,500 miles maybe. Large distance apart, but it's definitely caused. Now, the reason it's caused is by upwelling pressure coming from down below. Now, you see these domes? These domes indicate areas of pressure that could come up from down below the plate. And the dome of pressure, look where the dome of pressure for this deep 6.4 intersects. It goes right down on top of where our 7.9 hit. Let me get a side angle on this so you can really get a good look. See how the two domes perfectly intersect? The upwelling pressure off that came up and caused a larger earthquake. Same for over here in the West Pacific. Now, another way you can imagine this, let me turn on a graphic here. Thanks to Sumo, we have this. When you look at this, you can clearly see we have a cutout section of the core of the Earth. And we have a plasma core down at the core, not a metal ball. It's not solid. It's energy. It's something hot, like a plasma torch. And it's heating up the area down below. It's coming up, the pressure. It's hitting an area called the astenosphere that is semi-melted, but not fully melted. That causes the pressure to fan out and come up in a dome shape on the underside of the plate. Now, this dome shape of pressure causes other earthquakes. It's just simple physics. So, when we look at the activity over the last month, it really stands out. It's a lot. It is. We're up from where we were last year, for instance. Large earthquake-wise and deep earthquake-wise. So the deep earthquakes, we do not want to see deep earthquakes. The deep earthquakes mean there's going to be shallower, larger movement. And the deep earthquakes in the West Pacific let us know we have a deep 4.8 and a deep 4.2. This means over the next 3 to 4 days, we're going to see a 5.8 to 6.8, and we're going to see a 5.2 to 6.2 striking between these two deep earthquakes. That puts North Japan, Kuril Islands at risk, right where the bend of our arrow is. Okay? And then further to the west. This means the north arrow here in China, going down to our letter D over the next 3 to 4 days, should also be hit. And it should be hit by a shallow 5.8 to 6.8. Okay? And it could happen within the next 48 hours. So keep watch. We hope it's less. I always hope for less, but plan for more. And I would like to encourage you also, do not be scared. Be prepared. Being prepared means knowing what to do when an earthquake strikes in your area. If it's large, you need to take cover. You need to know how to take cover. I don't know where you live. I don't know your living arrangements, so I don't know what to tell you to prepare for in your house, other than to say when an earthquake above 4.5 strikes, it'll knock things off shelves. It'll break glass across the floor. If it hits in the middle of night, well, let's say it hits in the middle of the day, actually. If it hits any time, you don't want to have to walk across a bed of glass to get to the door, do you? Just think about it, okay? Think about the little things you can do now to make a plan and be prepared. Your employees, if you have them, your friends, family, loved ones, your kids. Think about it. Not trying to be dramatic, but look, the largest earthquake in years struck at the California-Nevada border. I don't have to say much more than that. There's going to be more movement. Ultimately, the West Coast will be hit again in the next few days, but first things first. Midwest, you're under the gun. You are under the gun, and I'm not exaggerating. Okay? So let's lighten it up a little bit. Word up to my people. How you doing? All right, everybody in chat, good. Let's get back over and turn on, well, let's turn off the display capture. Here we are. Okay, now we have our retro new wave look here, and we'll be listening to some more vaporwave throughout the night. And I'll shrink us back down to look like a little YouTube video on the screen. I want to thank everybody here who's new, and if you could, please subscribe. Trying to find as many people as possible to subscribe up to my channel. And I have to ask, I know it's not polite to ask, but I do have to ask. Take a look at it. 1,147 people in here. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Okay? All my moderators, thank you for your help. All my regular viewers, thank you also. It's been a long, long couple days. You can hear it in my voice. I pulled a 30-hour day yesterday. Did not sleep all night thanks to this West Coast stuff. And I'll be up tonight. I'm watching very close. We're waiting for the Midwest to get hit. I have a lot of viewers here. I'm in the Midwest, so it's very, very important to me to get this right. Hopefully, it'll be a swarm in the Midwest. A swarm that releases all the pressure as opposed to one single larger earthquake that's equal to the 5.7. We hope for less, like I said, but plan for more. Do not be scared. Be prepared. Peace out, guys. Much love.